Saturday evening, May 1st, 2010, New York City. A dark green Nissan Pathfinder with tinted windows sat idling near the corner of 45th Street and 7th Avenue, right in the heart of Times Square, directly in front of the Minskoff Theater, home to the Lion King musical. The engine was running. The hazard lights blinked rhythmically. At first glance, it looked like the driver had simply stepped away for a moment. But minutes passed. No one returned. Times Square was packed, as it always is on a Saturday night. Massive billboards flickered with endless advertisements. Tourists snapped photos. The city pulsed with life. But 56-year-old Lance Orton wasn't focused on selling t-shirts from his vendor stall. He was focused on the Nissan Pathfinder parked just 8 feet away. Because smoke had begun seeping through the slits of the rear trunk. Nearby, 58-year-old Duwayne Jackson also noticed it. Both men were military veterans. Both knew something wasn't right. Jackson decided to take a closer look. He approached the vehicle and peered through the window. No one was inside, but what he saw made his blood run cold. A key still sat in the ignition, attached to a ring holding nearly 20 other keys. And the back windows? They weren't tinted. They were painted black, deliberately blocking any view of what lay inside. Everything about this vehicle screamed danger. Jackson and Orton didn't hesitate. They frantically waved down a nearby police officer. When the officer examined the car, smoke began rising from a vent near the back seat. Through the haze, he could make out propane tanks, a metal box, and then pop, pop, pop. Sharp sounds rang out, followed by the unmistakable smell of gunpowder. That's when people started running. The officer immediately called for backup. Fire trucks arrived within minutes. The bomb squad moved in. Police evacuated the streets and surrounding buildings. Within moments, Times Square, one of the liveliest places on Earth, had transformed into a ghost town. The NYPD and FBI worked quickly to neutralize the threat. The bomb squad broke the rear window of the Pathfinder and deployed a robot to examine the contents. What they found was a recipe for mass destruction. Behind the driver's seat sat 2 large containers, each filled with gallons of gasoline and surrounded by M88 firecrackers. Beside them were 3 tanks filled with propane. And next to those tanks, a metal box packed with bags of fertilizer and another device loaded with more M88 firecrackers. Black powder and burned electrical wires were scattered throughout the vehicle, remnants of the few firecrackers that had partially detonated. All of these components were wired together, connected to a timer constructed from 2 alarm clocks. The clocks were brightly colored, almost cheerful. They looked more like children's toys than instruments of death. Slowly, carefully, the bomb squad disassembled the device, piece by piece. Nothing detonated, but the danger was far from over. NYPD Bomb Squad Supervisor Kevin Barry later explained why the bomb had failed. The ignition source never managed to detonate the main charge. The cheap timers and their faulty wiring failed to ignite the rest of the M88 firecrackers, which were supposed to set off a chain reaction through the propane and gasoline. What investigators had on their hands was a VBIED, a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, a car bomb. Crude, yes, but potentially devastating. And now, somewhere in New York City, the person who built it was still free. The FBI, NYPD, and Department of Homeland Security worked around the clock. Every agent, every detective, every analyst focused on one objective: identify the bomber before they could strike again. No eyewitnesses had seen who left the car, so investigators turned to technology. They reviewed hours of CCTV footage and tourist videos, tracking the Pathfinder's movements before and after it was abandoned. In Times Square, one of the most surveilled locations in America, surely at least one camera had captured the bomber's face, or at the very least, the direction they fled. But the city was already on edge. 9 hours after the discovery, at 4 a.m., a 911 call came in from a payphone near 7th Avenue, only 8 blocks from where the bomb was found. The caller's message was last night's attack was merely a diversion. A deadlier, more devastating explosion was coming. It could have been a heartless prank, or it could have been the terrorists themselves taunting authorities. Either way, it had to be taken seriously. The pressure to find the bomber intensified. Hours later, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, also known as the Pakistani Taliban, released 3 videos claiming responsibility for the attack. They warned that members of their organization were already in the United States, waiting for the signal to strike another city in the days or weeks ahead. That same day, Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly announced that a white male, believed to be in his 40s, had been spotted acting suspiciously in Schubert Alley, less than a block from where the Pathfinder was abandoned. The man had removed a dark t-shirt, revealing a red shirt underneath, and the whole time he kept glancing toward the Nissan. A tourist from Pennsylvania came forward, believing he might have unknowingly filmed this suspect. But when investigators examined the footage, the timeline didn't match. Information was scattered everywhere, which often happens when an event receives intense media coverage. News outlets speculated wildly. Some compared the attack to Al-Qaeda operations, like the 2007 incidents when 2 car bombs were discovered outside London nightclubs, followed by a propane-filled car ramming into a Scottish airport. Others theorized the bombing was retaliation for South Park, which had recently depicted the Prophet Muhammad in a bear costume, earning death threats from an extremist group. Viacom, which owned the network that aired South Park, had offices in the tower directly above the Minskoff Theater, where the bomb was parked. Compelling theories, but none with evidence to support them. While speculation swirled, investigators relied on physical evidence and forensic analysis. They started with the vehicle itself. It was sent to a forensic center for fiber analysis, hair samples, and fingerprints. Nothing. Then it went to the FBI laboratory. Analysts quickly determined the bomb was poorly constructed. Even if the timer had functioned correctly, the firecrackers weren't powerful enough to ignite the other components. And the fertilizer? It was the wrong type entirely. The bomber didn't know what they were doing. But that didn't mean they wouldn't learn from their mistakes. Next, investigators checked the license plate. Unsurprisingly, it didn't match the Nissan. It was registered to a Ford pickup truck, later found in a junkyard near Bridgeport, Connecticut. The vehicle identification number had been removed from the Pathfinder's dashboard. The bomber had tried to cover their tracks, but they apparently didn't know that VINs appear in multiple locations on a vehicle, including the engine block and axles. Using those hidden numbers, investigators traced the Pathfinder to its last registered owner, who had given the car to his 19-year-old daughter. The daughter had wanted to sell the Pathfinder to upgrade her vehicle. She'd posted online ads in April 2010, just 1 month before the bombing. Around mid-April, she received a call from a man interested in buying the car. He didn't want to give his name. Strange, but she agreed to meet him at a supermarket parking lot in Connecticut for a test drive. The buyer, a Middle Eastern man, arrived in a black Isuzu Rodeo. During the test drive, the seller tried to disclose the car's mechanical issues, but the buyer seemed more interested in the seat configuration and cargo space. Afterward, he agreed to purchase the vehicle for $1,300, paid entirely in $100 bills. He refused a bill of sale, claiming he already had a license plate. She handed over the keys, shook his hand, and watched him drive away in his new Pathfinder. Without a bill of sale, he had kept his identity hidden, but not entirely. The seller provided investigators with 2 crucial pieces of information: the buyer's mobile phone number and a physical description detailed enough for a composite sketch. Investigators traced the phone number to a prepaid account. It had been activated on April 16th, and hadn't been used since April 28th, 3 days before the bombing. While active, the account made several notable calls. Some were to the seller of the Pathfinder. One was to a fireworks store in Pennsylvania known for selling commercial-grade M88 firecrackers, the exact type found in the bomb. And 4 calls went to a number in Pakistan. That number was associated with a man named Faisal Shahzad, a man who matched the description given by the woman who sold the car. By Sunday night, just 24 hours after the attempted attack, investigators had identified their suspect. They had to assume Faisal Shahzad had already begun planning his next move. Overnight, he became the top priority for every branch of law enforcement, considered one of the most dangerous individuals in the nation. But when investigators examined his past, what they found was surprising. Faisal Shahzad was born in Pakistan to Baharul Haq, a decorated military pilot who rose from common airman to vice air marshal in the Pakistani Air Force. As the son of a senior military officer, Shahzad grew up surrounded by wealth and privilege, complete with servants, chauffeurs, and armed guards protecting his family. Despite having access to elite military schools, he didn't excel academically. But even with underwhelming grades, he was accepted as an exchange student at the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut in 1999. In America, Shahzad maintained a semblance of his privileged life. He drove a Mitsubishi Galant and had a large television in his dorm room, luxuries most college students couldn't afford. When he wasn't studying, he could be found partying, often surrounded by women. His classmates remembered him for his street smarts, not for any religious devotion. But beneath the surface, something darker was growing. A friend recalled that in 2001, right after September 11th, Shahzad had said they had it coming. He went on a rant about what he believed was a Western conspiracy to mistreat Muslims. Yet, despite this growing resentment, Shahzad appeared to be building a life in America. After graduation, he got a job as a financial analyst. In 2004, he married a Pakistani-American woman. He hosted backyard barbecues, doted on his children, and lived the picture of suburban normalcy. But his transformation didn't go unnoticed by those close to him. He began praying 5 times a day. He stopped drinking entirely. He started regularly visiting mosques around Stamford, Norwalk, and Bridgeport. Then, he sent an email to friends expressing his distress over what he perceived as a Western war against Islam. The crusade has already started against Islam and Muslims, with cartoons of our beloved prophet. In 2009, amid financial troubles and a failing marriage, Shahzad decided he'd had enough of America. He quit his job, packed his bags, and left for Pakistan, supposedly for good. At the airport, he gave his wife a choice: come with him or stay behind. She chose to stay, eventually moving with their 2 children to Saudi Arabia to live with her parents. In Pakistan, Shahzad promised his father he would start fresh by working in the family farming business. And for a while, he did. But secretly, he had other plans. He made contact with the Pakistani Taliban and enrolled in a bomb-making training program. In December 2009, Shahzad told his family he was leaving home briefly and would return soon. It was a lie. By early 2010, he was back in New York. And on May 1st, he revealed his true intentions when he tried to murder hundreds of innocent people. By May 3rd, FBI agents had located a 2-bedroom rental property in Bridgeport, Connecticut, linked to Shahzad. But when they arrived, he wasn't there. Agents interviewed the landlord, who revealed Shahzad had signed a 1-year lease, but had only been in the apartment for 3 months. They tried the keys found in the Pathfinder on the front door. One of them worked. This directly linked Shahzad to the bomb. Investigators searched the building's garage, which Shahzad had exclusive access to. Inside, they discovered fertilizer, fireworks, and other suspicious materials, additional components for future attacks. Later that morning, while staking out the apartment, agents finally saw Faisal Shahzad in person for the first time. He was walking home, carrying bags of groceries. They had him. Or at least, they would have, if they'd decided to arrest him at that moment. But the FBI made a calculated decision. Wait and observe. If Shahzad had accomplices, if other plots were in motion, arresting him immediately might destroy their only chance to uncover a larger network. A surveillance team was deployed to monitor his every movement, phone call, and email. By 12:30 p.m., Shahzad's name was added to the no-fly list, theoretically barring him from leaving the country. Then, in the late afternoon, Shahzad exited his residence, climbed into his white Isuzu Trooper, and drove south. The surveillance team followed closely. But there's one thing you never want to encounter when tailing a suspect. Traffic. They hit it, and they lost him. Officers scrambled to locate him again, but Shahzad had seemingly vanished into the city. Their only consolation? He was on the no-fly list. Even if he tried to flee the country, authorities would be notified immediately. At least, that's how it was supposed to work. What investigators didn't know was that airline reservation systems were significantly delayed in updating the no-fly list. That's why no alarm sounded when, at approximately 7:30 p.m., Faisal Shahzad walked into JFK International Airport and purchased a one-way ticket to Dubai. He paid in cash, under his real name. Emirates Flight 202 was scheduled to depart at 11 p.m. For the next 2.5 hours, Shahzad sat in the terminal, waiting nervously. At any moment, an officer could appear and take away his freedom. 8 p.m., nothing. 9 p.m., still nothing. 10 p.m., silence. He couldn't help but scan his surroundings constantly, reacting to every noise, glancing at every movement. But his anxiety began to fade when passengers were finally called to board. In a matter of minutes, the plane would take off. He would be out of the country, a free man. Meanwhile, investigators were frantically trying to locate Shahzad. Had he caught wind of the surveillance? Was he attempting to flee? The TSA ordered an emergency full-scale review of passenger manifests from every airline, searching for the name Faisal Shahzad. It was painstaking work, and unfortunately, it took hours. Time they didn't have. Then, at 10:40 p.m., a match. The bomber's name appeared on the passenger list for Emirates Flight 202, bound for Dubai, departing from JFK in 20 minutes. Customs and Border Protection agents were deployed immediately. They sprinted through the airport, racing against the clock. If Shahzad sensed danger, he might put the plane or passengers at risk, or worse, slip through their fingers entirely. When they reached the gate, the aircraft's cabin door was being sealed shut. The agents ordered it reopened. They walked down the aisle, scanning faces, until they found Faisal Shahzad sitting calmly in his seat. He didn't resist. He didn't cause a scene. He simply looked up and said, "I was expecting you." When investigators later located his Isuzu Trooper in the airport parking lot, they found a Cal-Tec 9mm pistol inside, along with several magazines of ammunition. If they had confronted him before he entered the airport, things could have ended very differently. And if they had arrived just minutes later, Faisal Shahzad would have escaped entirely. 2 additional passengers were removed from the flight for questioning, but were later released. 53 hours after a smoking car was first spotted in Times Square, the hunt for the bomber was finally over. After his arrest, Faisal Shahzad confessed to everything. On June 21st, less than 2 months after the attempted bombing, he was charged with 10 federal counts, including attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction and attempted acts of terrorism. He pleaded guilty to all of them. During sentencing, Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara described Shahzad as a remorseless terrorist who betrayed his adopted country. Today, he was rightly sentenced to spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Several of Shahzad's facilitators in Pakistan were also arrested, including Mohammad Rayhan, who allegedly connected him to the Pakistani Taliban, and Tahed Ahmed, detained due to suspicious correspondence. 5 other unnamed individuals were arrested in connection to the plot. The man seen changing his shirt in the surveillance footage? He was cleared of any involvement. Faisal Shahzad is currently serving his life sentence at the United States Penitentiary, Florence ADMAX, the most secure federal prison in America. Justice was served. But the weight of what could have been still lingers. The Times Square bombing attempt led to major security reforms, including requirements that airlines update no-fly lists in real time to prevent unauthorized boarding. Had the device functioned as intended, Times Square could have become a scene of unimaginable horror. 1 month after the incident, investigators conducted a simulation in Pennsylvania using the same components found in Shahzad's bomb, properly assembled. The results were devastating. This case proved that even with the best intelligence, the most advanced technology, and the most dedicated investigators, things can go wrong in an instant. A surveillance team can lose its target in traffic. A computer system can fail to update in time. A terrorist can walk through security and board an international flight. But it also proved something else. 2 street vendors, military veterans who simply refused to look away, may have saved hundreds of lives that night. And when everything that could go wrong did go wrong, the men and women tasked with protecting this city never gave up. In the end, they succeeded.